What's up, Las Vegas? We are here over at the Aviator Stadium. We just had a brilliant episode with Don Logan, the president of the entire Aviators. He's been in the industry for 42 years. We talked about mental health. We talked about military appreciation. We talked about what it was being a small town kid growing up into this big conglomerate here. He fought for this stadium. It has been an amazing interview, and we're going to be talking about a lot of different subjects here. Plus, he let me kind of run rampant here while no one's here, so that just by itself is hilarious. So, please stay tuned. Watch the episode. I'll see you guys later.
Does it just make you feel like you want a hot dog?
What dog?
I want a hot dog real bad. Reminds me of the 4th of July.
How are you doing today, Val?
Doing well, Ronnie.
Awesome. All right, well, not every day I get to sit with somebody who's been spending 40 years with 42 years with the longest running sport franchise in Las Vegas. How'd you end up in that?
Well, professional sports was something that, back in the early 80s, it didn't exist the way it did today. Obviously, Major League Sports was a long ways away.
Mm-hmm.
Minor League Baseball is the one professional sport that really has always had great depth in terms of number of teams all over the country. It's a tough game. You can't develop major league caliber players at the collegiate level the way you can for basketball and football and even hockey. It's just a different game. And I was finishing college. I was in law school with an idea of becoming an agent, and a guy, Bob Lurie, who owned the San Francisco Giants at the time, I had ended up interfacing with him on a regular basis, and he said, we don't need any more agents in this game. We need people to understand the business and run the business. And that kind of caught me. And then at that time, my dad was an educator. He worked in Nye County School District for 33 years, and he was friendly with the former governor, Mike O'Callahan. And Mike said, that they could use a kid from Nevada, somebody that understands the politics, kind of who's who and how it works here. And Larry Kentop, I reached out to him, came in and interviewed him, and he said, well, good, well, you're in. I said, well, I've got another, finish this year of law school. And he was like, no, we got to get going here. But I started on my birthday in 1984, January 6th, and never looked back.
Wow, all right. Yeah, from what I understand, you're from Tonopah, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And then that's how you kind of ended up into the Las Vegas scene for sports.
When you live out there, you go north or Reno or Vegas is kind of the epicenter. Vegas was always, I always ended up down here because a lot of the guys I went to school with and played with were from Southern California. This was the gathering spot. We'd always meet in Vegas, play golf, gamble, drink beer, do it, just do what you do. And so Vegas was comfortable. We had played, growing up in high school, we played sports here. We played all around Virgin Valley, Moapa Valley, Boulder City, Pahrump. Would play, in town sometimes. All the tournaments were here in Vegas. So Vegas was, comfortable place.
Comfortable place. And baseball was a pretty big deal back in the 80s around here?
Baseball's always been the number one sport in the Valley. Tark did a great job of bringing college basketball to the highest level, culminating with the 1990 national championship. But in terms of just the number of Vegas area kids going on to professional sports, it's, Jimmy's sitting here, I have him do it every year, but there's dozens and dozens of kids from Vegas that are Vegas kids or played at UNLV or now CSN that are playing professional baseball. I think there's 15 or so active in the big leagues today. You got Hall of Famer and Greg Maddux now, probably a future Hall of Famer and Bryce Harper. So it's a baseball town, and I don't say that to demean anything that anybody else is doing, but it is.
Oh, you came here first. So when it comes up to your leadership style, when it came to that, you started out in like sales exec and then you moved your way up. Like how did that start going forth?
You know, working in baseball was, I always thought I was going to play. The old saying is those who can do, those who can't teach it, coach it, or sell it.
Ah.
So, and that was kind of the mindset I had. At least I had a place in the game that I love. Going to the ballpark every day wasn't like work. My family has a great work ethic. I wasn't afraid to get up and go, and I tried to be the first one at the office in the morning and the last one to leave happy hour the next day or whatever we were doing. You can't be scared. You got to be aggressive and you got to go get it. And I knew it was something I wanted to do. Yeah, I didn't know what the ultimate path would be or where it would end. I don't think you can say that maybe and be able to do it. But I had a good enough sense that I had to make adjustments along the way. I had to stay current in technology and the way, the integration of so many different things into the business world. Had to learn accounting. That's still a pain in the ass because if that's one of the things. I was talking to a kid a little while ago, and I said he wanted some advice. I said, take some accounting classes, dude. That's everything in today's world, like it or not, and it has been this way for a long time. But in sports, it's it's a business, and it's a for-profit business, and you got to understand, you got to bring in more than you spend. That's pretty simple, but it's been a great ride.
It's been a great ride. Awesome. And with that, I understand that last year you became the honorary commander for Nellis for the F-22s with the testing. Mm-hmm. How did that come about?
It was I contact Tom Hum. I don't know if people in Vegas know the Hum family. David Hum was a All-American quarterback at Nebraska and I think he played 11 years in the NFL, mostly with the Raiders. So the Raiders coming here. Sadly, David passed away. He didn't get to see the Raiders play here, but he was at the groundbreaking. I was with him at that. But Tommy's a very successful radio executive here in town. And one of the gals that worked for him, she came up to a game and watched my shtick, watched me shake hands and get to know people and tell the story. And she said, have you ever thought about this? And honestly, the alliance for the Stars and 51s, it was a little stronger with Nellis when we were at Cashman. I mean, we were closer. You could buzz down to Vegas Boulevard and be there in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. The way that Nellis was set up at the time, there was a gal named Jean Jacobs. They had a ticket office, so we had tickets available for every game for all the airmen and active and civilian folks that had connection to Nellis. And it was a big part of our business. And when we came out here, the distance kind of changed that. Their structure at Nellis changed. Nellis is much bigger, and I don't know more important, but it's an incredibly important part of the whole national defense with the test site and the test range and Area 51 and everything that's going on, Creech, the epicenter of what we do with unmanned, with the drones around the world. So we needed to get back to making Nellis a big part of it, and it's been great. General Sullivan's there now. He was out here. He's been a couple times, but we've developed a nice rapport, and they asked me if I'd be interested in doing it, and certainly anything that I can do and that we can do, we're going to support the military. We're going to support our veterans. Again, I'm a lifelong Nevadan. I know how important Nellis is and has been to our economy, to it's a huge part of what Nevada brings to the national scene. Doesn't get talked about enough. The VA hospital is named for Mike O'Callahan. I'm sitting here today largely because of Mike. So there's a connection there that you can't break.
Gotcha. And then from your perspective, what exactly is your role there as the commander?
We provide tickets to not just my squad, right? It's anybody at the base who wants to come out. Really try to be accommodating to families of deployed military folks, and obviously right now, because we're not stuck in Afghanistan and Iraq anymore, there's not as much of that. But we've tried to do that through the years, and would continue to do it. But anything, we want everybody at Nellis to know that the Aviators are a part of. We're part of their family. When if they need something, they need to host an event. They need goodie bags. We take care of things for kids during the holidays. Well, trinkets and stuff that we have, hats and stuff we give away here. But anything we have is available to them. And I let General Sullivan know that. He's been here a little over a year. I met him like 2 days after he got here, and he's been great.
Awesome. That's great. So it's basically like a bridge from the military and the civilian world kind of coming together, right?
It's been fun. Again, I'm very, very conscious and appreciative of everything that the military does. That's tough, and you look what's going on in the world today. Look at this mess in Ukraine and Russia. That kind of stuff. I think if you listen to me talk long enough, and I grew up in Central Nevada in a small town and had a shotgun, a .22, and a rifle in my car, just in case we ran into something that we might want to take care of. I mean, my politics are very small town conservative and very, very pro-military, pro-police. We've got to tighten it up. We can't let things continue to go the way they've been. And, Nellis is a huge part of that in Southern Nevada.
All right.
That's a kind of statement I make every time I talk now, because
I'm
not. You can't sugarcoat. Everybody's soft. You got to get tough. I got a grandson that I just born 2 months ago tomorrow, and he was like half hour old, and I held him and I walked over in the corner and I said, "Oh, pal, one thing you're going to be is tough." And they're like, "Dad, he doesn't know you." I said, I know he doesn't know what I'm saying.
Plant that seed, though.
But when he does know what I'm saying, I'm going to say the first thing I ever told you is I love you, and you're going to be tough. You're not going to get pushed around.
That's what I'm talking about.
He'll know that.
Oh, yeah. As a father myself, I got 4 myself. I understand. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. With that, we're going to go ahead and take a break. All right. And good.
Awesome. And Don, thank you so much again for joining us. I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor for today's episode. Is going to be Born Free. Born Free is a nonprofit that helps other veteran nonprofits get stuff done. What I mean is they help with grant writing, paperwork, and all the things that people who are passionate about aren't good at that side of it. So they take care of the other stuff and let the creatives do the creative work. So, Don, you spent 18 years lobbying to get the new ballpark.
I don't know if it was just this ballpark, but as I mentioned a little bit earlier, Cashman Field opened in 1983. It was the newest and shiniest and best of the new ballparks. But if you think about how baseball evolved, and honestly, the first one everybody talks about was Baltimore Camden Yards, but it actually was what Jerry Reinsdorf did with Comiskey Field, Comiskey Park in Chicago. That was the first new one, and it still has some. They've fixed it up, but there started to be at the major league level kind of a ballpark renaissance in the late '80s, and obviously the minor league teams started following suit, minor league cities, and that the amenities. It used to be all about just getting a field together and getting some seats in there and filling it up whenever you could, making as much money, sell as much beer, hot dogs, and soda and tickets as you can.
Yeah.
And what those new ballparks did is they taught people that you got to have destinations within the stadium. You've got to have a variety on the food and beverage offerings. That it can't just be traditional ballpark stuff, and that started hitting in the minor leagues and started in Buffalo. The Rich family in 1988, Rich Stadium. I mean, they had their Buffalo royalty. Bob and Mindy did a heck of a job there, but they had designs on getting a major league team to Buffalo. But that was really the jump-off point at the minor league level. And suddenly, we here in Vegas, and the fastest-growing market in the country, that is really a baseball town. Our facility was substandard. We didn't have any suites, and we couldn't have the ability to segregate the food offerings. We had one kitchen, and you try to make steak and French. They're right next to each other. There's people are into food now. You have to do it right or they won't eat it. And it just got to the point where it was obvious we needed to do something. We actually started in 1995. We looked at doing spring training here and thinking that the predominance of teams at that time were training in Florida and Arizona, the Phoenix area, just like here, the desert Southwest was really booming, and it's an easier destination. It was just bigger and newer and nicer, and people wanted to go to Arizona. And a lot of the teams that were training in Florida, particularly the Dodgers, it never made sense that the dominant franchise in the West did spring training on the East Coast of Florida. It's Vero Beach, great town. I don't say that was the inside joke, but it didn't make any sense. So that was kind of the design, is to get the Dodgers to come here. So we started putting that together. The concept was hatched in '95. We really dove in '97, and the O'Malley family sold the Dodgers to Fox. Fox had a short-term ownership of it, and if Fox had kept the Dodgers, they probably would have moved their spring training here along with 3 other teams. That didn't happen because Fox sold to a guy named Frank McCourt. His orientation, and I don't really squabble much with this thought, but being down in the Phoenix area, they went out. They're out by State Farm Stadium, out where the Cardinals play, and partnered with the White Sox. And it's a beautiful facility. And Phoenix has boomed, and it works. Spring training really works well down there. So that was when that thing didn't happen. That included a new stadium for us. So now, that was in the early 2000s, 2001. We became a Dodger affiliate, which was interesting, and
that's so cool.
It was fun. And right away, some of the Dodger people were talking about, when are you guys going to get a new stadium? And the then president of the Convention Visitors Authority was a guy named Manny Cortez. He liked the Dodgers more than he liked anything. In fact, his daughter, Catherine Cortez Masto, is now one of our U.S. senators. So Manny, he started the idea, we got to really start working on getting a new ballpark. So it was, probably 2002 when it became evident, the Dodger people. We brought McCourt over, actually, and he talked about the player amenities, that the locker room was too small. The batting cage was outside. You do need to get the work done. The players need to work inside here because of the heat, because they come here, they're here at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and they don't leave till 10, 11 at night. So it kind of ebbed and flowed, in terms of location, keeping it downtown. Honestly, that never made sense to me, because had gone around the country and seen what's out there, and it just the growth in this valley coming out this way was something, going out toward Henderson as well, where Lee's Family Forum is. Jim Gibson was the mayor of Henderson at the time. We took a hard look at putting a stadium there and came close to getting something done. But, the guy we worked with is Terry Miller. He's still in town working on, he works on F1, but does a lot of work for the Convention Visitors Authority on their expansion project and their renovation project. He was the president of HNTB Architects, and big, massive worldwide firm. And Terry taught me a lot about this. And the number one thing when you put a stadium in that you got to consider is land cost.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing. But the number 2 thing that a lot of people don't get is ingress and egress, the ability to get people in and out easily and quickly, and it makes it easier to come more often. They're going to come more often. And when this site finally came to me, it was 2012.
Yeah.
The first time the Hughes folks reached out. Now, I kind of prompted them to reach out because we knew, I sensed that this was really a great spot, and there was interest there. The Howard Hughes Corporation stepped up in a huge way. Municipally, we had great support from the Convention Visitors Authority. Rossi Rollencutter, the guy that originally brought the Stars here, is now the president of the LVCVA. Rossi was a key part of that. Steve Sisolak was the chairman of the county commission at that time. He became the governor. Steve was a tremendous help, and it all came together. You know, that getting this place in this location, making it this nice. Hughes did things beyond the support we got from a naming rights deal with the LVCVA. Hughes went way above and beyond because they, best in class. The chairman and the CEO at that time was a guy named David Weinreb, and that was David's marching orders. Best in class. If we're going to do it, let's do it right, and we did, and it's been, an overwhelming success. We're the top grossing team in the history of minor league baseball. Every year we've been in existence. We got a great market, but the ballpark is fantastic. So it was a fun ride. Learned a lot along the way.
And I feel like in that process, the ballpark became the pillar for Summerlin, and it allowed for this such rapid expansion that we've had here in the last 5 years.
I think what we did really, I don't think that there's Major League Sports as soon as there was. I know, there's a lot that's gone on in my career. One of the things that happened back in the late 90s is there was the coming off of basketball was real high profile. That was the end of the Jordan. There was Bird, Magic, and then there was Michael. And people thought we got to get the NBA here. And I was involved in a couple meetings about moving the San Antonio Spurs here.
Yeah.
They were struggling to get a new building down there. They wanted to do it. We actually we met a lot of names that don't matter. Steve Wynn was a part of this discussion, but the guy that owned the Spurs was a Vegas regular. He liked to come here and play and get after it. And there was movement to get that done, and then their season ended, and they drafted, and they took Tim Duncan with the first pick, and then I think they got Tony Parr. They put what ended up being that great championship team together. If they had kept floundering the way they were, they would have ended up in Vegas in 2000 or that long ago. But that got it going. We looked, with Manny Cortez at the LVCVA, we looked at relocating the A's here in 2004. The decision that I didn't agree with it then, and I still think it was wrong, but the consultants came in and said the market's not big enough. But Vegas is different. We've got 45 million visitors coming here, so you can't the typical the dynamics and the data that every other market uses to support their what they're thinking doesn't apply here. And that was when, interestingly enough, though, that's Steve Schott and Ken Hoffman owned the A's. They had enough, and they sold to a group that included the chairman at that time was Lou Wolf, but included the Fisher family and John Fisher. So that full circle now. John, Lou was doing some estate planning. They took a bigger, a controlling position with the A's, and they couldn't get anything done in Oakland. It was in 2004 is when that started, and then, it's going to take till 28 to get them here. But it's a great market in a lot of ways, and Major League Sports saw that. But the fact that we were so successful here, I think really, I don't know that the A's would have jumped on it as much as they did.
Yeah.
I think we paved the way for the Raiders. Steve went from the county commission to being the governor. Sheldon Adelson was involved in that. Brian Sandoval was our governor. He was supportive of it. A lot of things lined up effectively for the Raiders. Bill Foley having the wherewithal and the foresight and the guts to write a $500 million check basically to bring the NHL here. That Bill deserves a lot of credit too. But again, we proved that this is not a traditional market, and you can be successful here even though the market size is much smaller than most other major league cities.
Yeah. So what I want to know is, you've gone through many owners, many affiliations, and many locations to get to where you are now. What has that taught you about resiliency?
Well, you got to be able to adapt and adjust. I mean, you guys are all military guys. I got to believe that's a big part of your training. You can't every day is not like today with,
Where the
nice
sky is
and
blue,
clear and everything. It's the way it is. And, the business in general, the sports business has really evolved in my time. In baseball, we used to, the game itself was driven by scouts and old baseball guys chewing tobacco on the field, smoking cigarettes in the tunnels. We called it eyes on guys. That's oh, that guy can play, that guy can't. There was, the baseball card was the data. You'd had as a hitter, it had their batting average, at bats, runs, hits, doubles, triples, home runs, RBIs, stolen bases, and that was it. And then it's evolved now that it's a spreadsheet is what you have now. But instead of having 6 or 7 data points, you have 30 on a player. So you have a lot more information to make a more informed decision. And you can't just say, well, that I don't agree with it, I'm getting the hell out of this business, because that doesn't work. No, that's life. It changes, and it changes on the business side too. I touched earlier, you got to create destinations within the ballpark. You got to be willing to give people what they want. One of the things we did very effectively here at Las Vegas Ballpark is the food offerings. I mean, we buy prime beef, we buy top rate chicken, all the food that's served here isn't
not just hot dogs.
It's not the week old stuff that's about to go out of code that a lot of stadiums had done for years. We do food at a higher and better level than as any venue in the country. It doesn't matter if it's major league, minor league. That's been a big plus for us. I think the way we designed this place, which was it was on purpose, but to cover the majority of the seating bowl, makes it a little bit cooler. We've got those fans. The company's called Big Ass Fans, but we put buku big ass fans along the underneath, and it is a comfortable place to come and sit. We're 3,000 feet above sea level here. The airport, I think it's 3,013 up here. The airport's like 2,000. So you're 1,000 feet higher than the airport, and that means it's cooler. And the sun goes down quicker because we're closer to the mountains. So evenings out here aren't, it's 7 to 10 degrees cooler at 8 o'clock here than it is down on the strip. So just a lot of little things that you learn, and you got to adapt and you got to adjust, and we do. Not charging for parking, which I think now, if some of the folks in the gaming industry had to do it over again, that's I'm sure it's generated a significant amount of revenue, but that was always one of Vegas's cool things. You'd come here, you'd free valet, free parking, whatever, and that we do free parking. And my mindset there is, let's get people in the lot and get them in the stadium as quickly as we can, so they can buy a beer, buy a soda, buy a hot dog, buy a hat, whatever. That make it easy, because parking, we had parking at Cashman, obviously we charged for it, and every night, and I'd say there were multiple issues in the parking lot. That time we had cash. Now we're cashless, but they'd run out of change, and cars would back up in the freeway, and then there'd be a wreck, and then we'd get a call from the highway patrol or Metro, and parking is a colossal pain in the ass. So
you can't do with those points of congestion.
No, that was again, something I think I learned through the years. We don't charge for it. It works great. We have free valet. The valet guys here love it because they get tipped so well, because people can pull right up the curb and take care of them. So it's all good.
I love it. So we're about to take a quick break, but before we do, once again, I want to thank Born Free for supporting this episode and helping veteran nonprofits support veterans here in Las Vegas. We're going to roll into what advice you would have for someone just starting out, getting out of the military, and getting into those leadership positions, and then we're going to talk about some fun stuff.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Don, and that's a break.
Well, Don, I understand that you came from a small town and then you went in to get into the sports world in a big way. It's kind of hard when you really think about when you do end up, because you already know, for me, I was from the Bay Area, then I moved up to Sacramento, and you probably been through Galt. Everyone's seen Galt. Living there for about 7 years, and then kind of getting into the small town mindset and everything, and not really, everyone's kind of just okay with being there. I had to get out, so that's why I ended up joining the Marine Corps in the first place. I wanted to actually get out. And then for someone like you who went from a small town, what was the inspiration that made you want to expand?
I don't know that I ever really wanted to leave. What I wanted to do was baseball, and that obviously didn't exist out there. You know, there was never. I played football and basketball in high school. You know, I mean, I enjoy those very much. My brother-in-law just retired after 43 years of coaching college and pro football. So I mean, I've been actively involved in football for a long time, but you know, to live out in Tonopah where I grew up, you know, one of the things that keeps you there is a real love for the outdoors, which, you know, you grow up there, you have to have it. So I mean, we went hunting and we went fishing all the time.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. I don't have the passion for that. I've got a nephew that's a Department of Wildlife game warden here in the state of Nevada. Now he lives here, but he every time he can get away and go do it, he wants to go out in the country, and you know, that's what he does now. He patrols that. He's keeps everybody honest, hopefully. But you know, my thing was, you know, I enjoyed sports so much. I like to play golf. You know, there's no golf course out there. We had a golf course at the airport, a 9-hole sand golf course, but it wasn't the same. So just as I grew up, that was, you know, unfortunately, a lot of people in my generation left Tonopah. It was a booming place, and booming by Tonopah standards. But it's coming back now with the lithium mines and things out there. You know, it just, you have to go where there's something for you to do, and you know, out there it's defense oriented. If you go to college and you're an engineer, or you're a chemist, or things that apply to what's going on at the test site, Tonopah is a good place for you. If I'm a communications major that wants to be in baseball, I had to go somewhere else. So that's what I did.
Communications major, went to baseball. That's kind of fun. I was a radio operator in the Marine Corps.
I was a DJ at the Dixie. I used to do that. I did some TV.
I did some DJing.
Oh yeah.
All right, there we go. Headphones then. All right. Well, for other people who looking to inspire, because you just said like you wanted to do baseball, like what is your advice for somebody that actually wants to do something? Should they just get up and go do it, or they should find a way,
You know, I talked to a lot of young people through the years, and the longer you do this, I think the more you do. But one of the advice I give anybody is you want to do something that you're passionate about. It doesn't matter if you're doing a podcast and you're into all the elements that go into this, the video and audio production part of it. That's what you do. If you love to cook and you want to own a restaurant, you want to make it special, and you want to have a cuisine unlike anybody else, then go for it. But you got to do something that isn't like work. It was never like work for me to get out of bed and go to the ballpark, which is where my office was, and sell baseball, talk baseball, be around it, you know, pretty much every day, all day. And that it was easy. There was no, you know, it was never something you were like, oh, damn, you know, I need a day off. I couldn't wait to get there every day, you know. And I think I was thinking about this the other day. I probably had about a 10-year run. I don't think I was ever sick. I know I never missed work, other than if I traveled, maybe that was it. But, you know, it was just never the passion. Yeah, it's never a burden. And I think it doesn't matter. You know, I have a niece who has never got a B in her life, but she always wanted to be a teacher. And everybody said, oh, you need to go to law school. You need to be a doctor. You got all this academic prowess. And she was like, no, I want to be a teacher. And she's a wonderful teacher. She's teaching high school up in northern Nevada, and couldn't be happier. And she's not chasing the money. That's one of I think a lot of today's kids don't get that. You can't do something for money. If you're good at it, and if you really are put your best into it, and are, like I said, passionate about it, money's going to come. And money isn't, that isn't the only thing that's out there. You know, you hear all that people talk about, you got to be happy and fulfilled and all that. Well, if you do something that you're passionate about, that you care about, and you put your all into it, you're going to be happy and you're going to be fulfilled. And you may not be, you know, Elon Musk, but who is? You know, you go chasing money. A lot of guys that I went to law school with, you know, they were chasing dough. Everybody lawyers going to make a bunch of money. I bet it's subsided now, but the first 10 years I was here, I bet you a dozen people from law school would reach out to me asking how can they get into baseball. You know, they're like, this is a grind, you know, being a friggin' lawyer, reading all the, you know, being an entry level, you know, junior partner, whatever they were. But, you know, I didn't have any of that. I mean, I was very lucky to Bob Lurie's advice was great. Mike O'Callahan and my dad and Larry Kentop, Rossi building the ballpark. You know, so many people had a hand in it, and you can't be afraid to ask for help.
No.
And you can't be afraid to go, you know, to take advantage of good luck. You know, sometimes luck is on your side, sometimes it's not. But when you get a break, you got to, you know, take advantage of it. It's like in a game. They make an error, give you an extra out, get a base hit to get the run in. You know, it's you have to be resourceful, and you have to have your mind on a swivel. You got to be willing to adjust and adapt to the situation, and I think that's the best thing I can tell anybody.
That's pretty good. I know, like, I've talked about this before because as we all are veterans, we have, like, the work ethic, we have the structure, we have the discipline, but when we get out, we don't really have an idea of where to even put that passion. So a lot of us go into jobs that kind of drain us, really just take the life out of us, and we wonder, like, what is the point? Which is why Brenton and I do this podcast to kind of highlight people who are pursuing those passions and therapies that are a little bit out of the box that make us into the people that we need to be. And what you're saying is pretty true. If you're not pursuing what it is that you want to do, that's something that you're passionate about, then you kind of lose yourself.
Yep.
You're kind of wasting your life almost.
You know, I don't know this. I know this anecdotally. I don't know it. You know, there's no data point I'm even considering here, but I do know for years and years, a lot of military folks, they would get out of the military and become peace officers, become cops, or it's some sort of law enforcement.
Easy thing just to fall into.
And it was, you know, I think as much as anything, it's because they knew how to use a gun. You know, they were trained to do that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had my mother's family was law enforcement. My grandfather was the chief of police. My uncle was a cop. Another uncle was a cop. Cousin was a cop.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I can tell you by being around them at Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, they were way more passionate about. My one uncle was a car guy. He could you could give him a pile of bolts in an old car, and he could turn something into amazing. You know, he should have done that. He you know, being a cop was a means to an end, and then he got into it. He has a family, and he's got, you know, he has to have income to support the family, and he never really chased that. You know, he could have gone to work as a mechanic, you know, an auto mechanic or he could have had his own place. He would race. He'd build cars and go race them at all the little tracks around Central California and Nevada. He loved it. But he didn't do it because he was in the military. He was a Marine. Came out of the Marines. Boom, you're a cop.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, okay, you know, he's 23 years old, 24 years. He didn't know what the hell he was doing. So I do think that as I think about it from a veteran's perspective, my uncle, the other uncle, he was in the Army. He was in the Korean War, and he came out of that. But he got trained as an electrician in the Army. So he'd go out and they'd build their little MASH units, or I don't know what the hell they did, but I mean he learned electricity in the Army. He did his, I think then they had to do a 2-year commitment. He was over there for like a year and a half, and then he came back. And rather than he got drafted and left college to go to Korea to fight, to be in that war. he came back, and my grandma and grandpa said, "Okay, Rich, you got to go back to college." Bright guy, and he was like, "Nah, I know what I want to do. This electrician thing I get it. It's enjoyable. It's outside." He went to work for Southern California Edison for about 10 years. Was a lineman, crawling up poles, doing things, and then started his own electrical contracting business, and he loved doing it. He had that engineering mind. Electricity's tough. It's like water. You think you got it backed up, and you don't. But he built a multi-million-dollar company. He had a home in Hawaii. He had homes around. He's got, he was a wonderful guy, the most happiest man you'd be around all the time, because he did something he loved to do. So, I mean, I had two of my uncles were kind of, both great guys, and both did great family guys. Everything they did, nothing bad. But I saw that. I witnessed that in my own family. And I think they're the two veterans I can speak to, that the one that, he got a passion for the electrical business, how electricity worked. It fit his mind. It wouldn't work. I worked for him all that. I still, the Elks Lodge in Tonopah burned down one year, and I swear to God it was because he left me alone for about 2 hours to hook up the main. It took about 10 years, but I guaranteed you I had a hand in that. Not obviously not on purpose, but
slow burn. Gotcha.
Slow burn, but no, there was passion's the key, and and again, I think that vets, to me, just got to ask too, and I think as a society, we're doing a great job with that now. You see, I watch sports on TV. I mean, I watch the local news to see what the weather's going to be the next day, to see how hot or how windy it is, if I'm going to golf or not. What's going to happen out here? Is it going to affect us crowd-wise? I watch that. I'll watch a little of the news talk stuff. That's mind-numbing. But I watch sports. And you see it now more and more on sports, though, is that, the Wounded Warriors program, but helping veterans out is something that is much more top of mind. And, you look at what you guys are obviously much younger than me, that, what happened in Iraq and how long we were over there, and what happened in Afghanistan and how long we were over there. You've got a lot of people, a lot of veterans who got forced into something. They joined, they volunteered, but the way that evolved, and what was supposed to be going on really wasn't going on in Iraq. And then the Afghanistan thing, the disaster that we left there, it wasn't. It's sad, but we owe it to our veterans to be mindful and to be aware of them, and that you guys need help. And if you need help, I mean, to ask me to come sit down and talk to you, I'll do it anytime. I get that, and it's up to guys like me to tell my colleagues and my contacts in the community, let's step up, and let's do some things. We've got a foundation here. We've got access to money to donate things, and that's our obligation. And I put veterans at the top of the list. There's tons of great causes. That sick children, the American Cancer Society. There's an entity here called Candlelighters for Childhood Cancer. You can't turn your back on that. A good friend of mine, Gary Ackerman, has the autism, the Nevada Autism effort that he oversees, because he's got a child with autism. They're great causes, but there's, I think, successful former vets. If my uncle was still alive, he would be the first guy in line handing checks out and building houses for vets. The Wounded Warriors thing that's a very necessary deal. The things that are going on there, but it's just important, and it's up to you guys. Keep reminding us, and guys like me keep spreading the word.
I hear a lot of appreciation for the military then. And like someone like me, you were talking about Afghanistan. I was in Afghanistan with 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines during that really rough Sangin deployment. And like this year, if you know, it's the 250th birthday of the Marine Corps. They were going to open up Tun Tavern, but I heard that apparently that's not going to happen. But I'm still going to do something. My personal life, some things are going rough, so I was going to go on a road trip and go see my guys because I think we have a little bit more than 50 people right now in my unit that have committed suicide or died of sickness. And it's hard because it's exactly what we're talking about. They don't have those outlets. We lose the community, we lose the camaraderie, and, you know, we keep contact with everybody, like, and it's difficult to kind of keep on going, especially when you go through a very hard military life like me and the guys did, and then you come out into the regular world, and it's not that we can't move on, it's just it feels like everything's so small, and then we do jobs that we're not appreciated for, and then we're just expected to be like, this is okay. And I mean, I was told the other day by somebody, like, hey, it was like 15 years ago, you just need to get over it. And I just came back from a funeral 2 weeks ago, and she basically told me it wasn't that big of a deal. But I'm actually making a documentary from this road trip. I'm going and actually seeing my guys and kind of spending time with their families and seeing what they're doing and seeing how they're getting through it and processing. And I just did the first couple of interviews this past weekend, and I realized, like, you know, it has been 15 years, and a lot of us are doing some really great things, but we still live like it's yesterday in our heads. You're not always living there, but like something will bring it back. And you know, my thing will actually end with me in D.C. Going to the Marine Corps Museum. But my son, he's a combat veteran. He's a combat medic over there in the Army, and he's in D.C. So I'll be able to see him at the end of it. So it's like things like this. If you would have told me I was going to be doing it a couple of years ago, absolutely not. That was not even in the cards. But I know for myself, if I'm not pursuing something that I'm passionate about and loving, I wouldn't know what to do with my life. You know, and I got kids that need to see that that's something out there, and I know there's veterans and other people that need that too. Yeah. You
know, one of the things that I would, and it's a thought again, I can't speak to it because I'm not a vet, but I think that I think that's an obligation that the military probably has never considered. You know, that they do have, particularly to servicemen that don't become a career military guy.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody stays in the military for a career and honestly, I think this was something that Bush instituted in his first or second term, was to pay the military better, to make it worthwhile to stay in the military as opposed to getting out. And so that has improved, you know, and so that's a good thing. But I think there has to be some consideration of taking care of vets who, you know, they get done with their, you know, whatever the amount of time they have to serve, and they move, you know, back into the real world. You see it all the time. You know, I talk to, I'm a big, having been at 35 years at Cashman, the homeless problem it's only getting worse. And the homeless problem is exacerbated in the last, you know, 20 years by the number of vets coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq who have they get done, and it's like we talked before, now what am I going to do? And they've seen things and experienced things in those deployments that are life-altering, and it's stuck in their head. And it's, you know, when I grew up, it was the post-Vietnam era, and, you know, there was that was happening then, and it continues to happen. And we, as a country, particularly, the world follows us, whether anybody wants to like that, and we shouldn't follow the world. We do better leading the pack, and I think we owe it to our vets to understand that there's got to be, whether it's counseling, and it you know, it's a big issue, but I can tell you mental health is something that nobody really wanted to talk about. You know, you talk about it in football now, all the head injuries and stuff, and some of the number of suicides that those guys are doing. The mental health of our vets, seeing what they saw, experiencing things that you see it in a movie, it doesn't mean anything, but when you live it. A dear friend of mine's son was in Afghanistan, and the Humvee ahead of them got blown up, and like 8 guys died in it. And he's better, but he's not better. You know, it's been 10, 15 years, and he's still struggling. You know, and I can't imagine that. Now he does have a great family. He's got he's in Utah, so there's a support system up there that he's tapped into. And like you, though, I mean, they've experienced suicides at a rate, ridiculous rate compared to the national average. And so we got to figure that one out. If we talk about what's going on in Washington now. You know, we got to close the border. We got to do this. We got to do that. We got to make peace in the Middle East. We got to do something with Ukraine and Russia. Okay, that's great. We really need to get after the homeless situation, because the homelessness is fed by mental issues. A lot of the mental issues are caused by what's happened to our vets. Just mental health, period, is something that's got to be dealt with. And I would put that, if I was running, which I'll never run for office, that would be one of the things I'd really push for.
That's good. I know mental health is one of those things that is, it seems like a very touchy subject when it comes to veterans. I know, like, when we were discussing it this past weekend, one of the things, like I just said, like, it's always there, and you're not really thinking about it and how it affects everything in long term. Because I remember when I got out, I thought I was fine. I didn't think there was a single issue with me at all. And then I come to find out, I go to my friend's wedding 8 years later, and he was like, I really thought you were going to go to jail when you were getting out, just because of I saw something in your eyes I didn't like, but I was too scared to say anything to you, and then I didn't want you to say anything to me because what you might see in me. And that was like a kind of eye-opening, because I do remember within 1 year of me getting out, I lost my job, and it was hard for me to even get back into it, because Las Vegas is a cowboy town. Everyone talks to everybody. Everybody knows everybody in certain industries. And it was hard for me to get back into the industry I was in, because my anger was so bad. It was hard for me to be professional. And, I went through a fantastic program through my church, was able to go through that. Then I went to college and tried to learn things. And over a period of time, I still struggle with the mental health portion of it, and the anger, the depression, the anxiety. To this day, I still have trouble sleeping. It's not like I have nightmares. It's just, it's hard to relax. I still tell people to this day, I've never slept better than I did when I was in Afghanistan, because at least then I knew someone was watching over me. And it's not the same over here. Over here, it seems like everything's very cutthroat, and you don't really have that kind of brotherhood, which is why I appreciate people like Brenton and Cheeks over here, that I know I can call them up and they would be there. And it's not the same all the time.
And again, that's our obligation as a society to understand that and do what we can to help vets. But I think it starts with, Pete Hex is the defense secretary now.
Yeah.
Brilliant guy. He's one of the gifted intellectual dudes that was deployed, and I'm sure understands this at a level most people can't. But that would be something for them to jump on, and say, okay, what can we do? We've got to deal with it. You can't just say, oh, we'll figure it out. Well, that doesn't work that way, And in today's world, you guys have a real disadvantage, because there's so much information flying around all the time. It's literally in your pocket. And the accuracy of a lot of it is suspect at best, but there's a lot of things that people think or believe or are told that your mind is a strange thing, man, and nobody really knows how it works. But you get things in your head, and it's hard to get them out. And your generation, my kids' generation, that's all they know. Back in the day, I think I had the first cell phone when you really could get out and about. It was a big old block thing like this. I want to say the late 80s, but up until then, when you needed to find something out about anything, you go to the library and get a book or dig it up or go.
Those encyclopedias, remember that?
You'd have to go looking for, you couldn't Google it. You couldn't, there was just that. You had to be really steadfast in your approach to getting information, and you had to go ferret it out. Or if you didn't give a shit, you didn't do it. But there was the freedom that existed, prior to this information explosion that I think, but the vet part of it, I know Vietnam guys that struggled for years. So it's no different. And they were, growing up or maturing at the same time as I was. But I think it's worse now because you have so much freaking info flying at you all the time. And again, that's, go back to what we talked about earlier. You got to be able to adjust and pivot and deal with things that are new, that maybe modify the way you approach anything.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, you got to shut it off, and I think that's one thing that, I left my phone. I came to the ballpark the other night for a game, Saturday night. I was watching golf, watching Scotty Scheffler kick everybody's ass, and hurried out the door. I tried to get here by 3:30 for a 7 o'clock weekend game. And I left my phone. And I was like, because I got in the car, and the first thing I did, I actually called my daughter, and no phone detected. I'm like, So I came here, and I didn't have my phone. It was awesome. I had, 50 texts when I got home that night, and buku missed calls. But I wasn't always looking at my phone, and it was like, okay, that was a good little lesson, because it just occupies, and it gets, your mind's only got so much bandwidth. It's no different than a computer. So, again, I think it's critical that we, and I think as vets, collectively band together, get to the people that are have access to key decision makers. Shoot for Hegseth. Heck, he's the top of the heap. But get him going on it. That'd be a good thing to do. We'll help you.
Gotcha. All right. With that, we're going to take another break, and then Brenton's going to come over here and ask you some fun questions. Okay. I don't know what they are yet, but we're going to have some fun with it. So, with that, let's take a break.
Now, Don, when it comes to things like being the honorary commander, do you get to plan some of the military flyovers that come over here?
No. That's a much more involved process, and as it should be.
Yeah.
Obviously. But now Eric Eisenberg's our vice president of ticket sales. Their livelihood depends on selling lots of tickets, and a flyover is a really cool thing to people want to come out and see. So
there's so many moving parts to get in those 8 seconds of making sure everything's timed out perfectly.
Yeah, they really have got it dialed in pretty well right now, and the path coming, they can come this way from the northeast or come straight from the north down. It depends on the air traffic, what's coming out of Nellis and things like that. But no, it's cool, and they've got like the little backpack that it's like the homing device for the whoever's the lead. It's cool. It's fun. I think I've noticed we've done, I think, 3 or 4 this year. We got another one coming up, championship game. People are, like I said before, but people are much more aware of the military today than they've been in my whole career. And that's good. That's what's going on in the world today. Kind of hopefully is woken. We're not woke. We're awakened to how important it is to have a strong military, and that's really a demonstration of it. But that's big. That's a powerful thing.
Even if I had no clue of aviation, because I'm an aviation guy myself, but even if I had no clue that the military was flying over, I would, because they ding my house, and the whole thing shakes when it happens.
No, it's cool.
So they end kind of right over top of the pools over there.
The last 2, the 3rd of July came straight from the north.
Okay.
I don't know. It depends. They told me it depends on the traffic from Nellis. They coordinate it with them.
That makes sense.
So,
and then pair it up. I've seen one where they pair it up directly with the national anthem, and as the rockets
that's
red
what
glare.
they do. That's the whole goal, is that literally at the end of the anthem, the flyover's there.
Yeah.
like when we were at Cashman, it was just hit and miss. It could be right in the middle of the anthem. It could be before. It might be 2 minutes after. It was just. But that again, technology's improved to the point where we can dial it in pretty effectively.
Especially with the assistance of these JTAC guys coming in and just making sure that everything is timed out perfectly.
Yep.
It's magical.
Good. It's good. It's a great thing.
So now you guys also do military appreciation nights here as well. Why don't you tell me a little bit about those?
Well, the whole idea, we had one the other night, is that any current or former military members, we offer a deal on tickets. This time we brought, I think we had 22 active duty military members who had been chosen by their various commands or commanders to come out, and we just hosted them in our suite and eat, drink, and be merry. We took them down on the field and recognized them. And then, it's again, it's part of military appreciation. To me, is an everyday thing.
Oh yeah.
And but doing the nights and getting them to grow and make them bigger. Honestly, my goal for those is to, we're honoring veterans every Friday and Saturday. We had a guy in here the other night. We gave him a jersey. He's 100 years old. He's going to be 101 in like 2 months. So we gave him 101, and his daughter's like, I don't know if he's going to make it. I mean, this guy was a pilot in World War II.
So cool.
Badass. And you see him, now he can't hear, but he can bounce around and he can talk. When you look at it, you can have a great conversation. He's sharp as a tack.
Yeah.
And you think about, his son-in-law is a retired colonel. He's a pediatrician here in town now, but he was a doctor in the military. It's just it's up to, I think, organizations like us. The radio. I'll tell you who does a great job with the military is the San Diego Padres. Because they've got the confluence of all the armed forces there. They on Sundays they wear the uniforms. We were talking about it the other day. We're going to introduce because of Nellis, it's blue. We're going to introduce some sort of a military uniform and dial in on a specific day of the week.
I think that
we have
really
to do part of our challenge is working with Major League Baseball. They have to bless everything we do. Big Brother is looking over our shoulder, but they can't say no to that.
Yeah, and I know like San Diego with Miramar being right there, and then the Navy base being right there. Did you see that they're having a NASCAR race on the Navy base in San Diego starting in next year?
Yeah.
The logistics behind that is crazy.
Yeah. Again, I think I know a little bit. My brother-in-law coached football at San Diego State up until season before last. He was there for 14 years, so I have a lot of good friends down there, and Padre people are good friends. That the Miramar is a huge. Yeah, it's pretty much it's active. There, a couple of the, they still fly in and out of there, but it's a massive place that got, in the downsizing of the military. So it's now I've never been on the base itself, but apparently there's plenty of room to just erect
Oh, it's a whole city on there.
Yeah, so it'll be cool, and that's fun. Southern California, they got the race up in the LA out east of LA. They got the road course up in Sonoma, but down there will be again the military, the proximity to Mexico. There's a lot of San Diego's a sleeping giant of sports. It's a sad day that the Chargers left, but you look. I think the Padres are the third in attendance right now in Major League Baseball, and great town, great weather, great a lot of things, and the military makes San Diego special.
We love it. Now, you guys have had a ton of different mascots roll through here, like the Cone Jesters, you've had the Belly Busters, as well as Cosmo the Alien. Of those like one-off like mascots that you've had for those events, which has been your favorite?
Well, the Cone Jesters, Belly Busters, Gamblers, that was a one-night thing. We call it a what if. What if we had changed? What if that was the name we used? Or what if we had changed our name to that? we had a brand manager, Edward Dorville. He's sitting in there right now with his chin on his hand, trying to think of shit that unique. That's he's that guy. But those were all Ed's ideas. The Cosmo was our mascot when we were 51. So that was a play on Area 51.
Oh yeah.
Cosmo, the alien head, that very popular. I mean, that was, to this day, we sell, we own the marks, and we sell a significant number of, alien head hats. It's amazing. But that one was the most fun. You could just do it every night. We had a great time doing that. When we were with the Stars, we never did a good job with the mascot. We had Elvie, which was a play on Elvis, and that was okay. And then we did Starman, and we had this rubber suit the shape of a star. You get in it in July, and it would kill people. It would be so hot.
Yeah.
We never did a good job with that on Stars, but we owned the Las Vegas Thunder hockey team, and that started Boom Boom. John Ciceni, who runs the Las Vegas Bowl now, his first job for me was getting into Boom Boom. He could skate. We had to find somebody that could skate. He'd skate around before the game and then go hit on chicks during the game. But that mascot was fun. And then Cosmo was right next to that one.
Now, 3, 2, 1. I want to know a little bit about the logistics of putting the pool and the hot tubs over there in that back corner right behind the outfield. Like, how hard was that to plan out?
It's just, this ballpark is an accumulation or a compilation of a bunch of, I call it destinations within the ballpark.
Yeah.
But we spent 2 seasons, the season of 14 and the season of 15, traveling around to other stadiums. Obviously, they got the pool in Arizona. That's a big amenity. It fits here because of our weather.
Yes.
And putting it out there, it's by the kids area, it's by the parking lot. It's you got a bar there. You kind of, it fits. That was the whole idea. But Arizona, that was the inspiration for that. The seats right above the left field wall. That's our version of the big monster, the green monster. It's you right on top of the wall, and the wall there is only 14 feet. I think it's 40 feet in Fenway, but that's a fun thing. The seats on the ends, the pie-shaped sections, looking in they have a rail in front of them and a place to put your food and beverage. The concept there of looking in, that was something that they did actually in Albuquerque, and I thought it was cool. Our restaurant here, the club, they had a nice one in Charlotte. They had a decent one in Durham. They have an okay one in El Paso. So we looked at all of those and said, "Now it's got to be the epicenter of the premium space," and it is. So we really it's the per capita, we kill it in there.
Oh, it's a one-stop shop.
It is. It's a really nice place, and then we got the doors open. We open the doors when it's 100 degrees or less. We've got 400 club seats out there. All of our club seat owners get access to the bar and to the buffet in there. The kitchen upstairs was another thing that was inspired by Petco in San Diego. That guy told us, you need to, instead of having one main kitchen and then trucking everything around it, the food tastes better, lasts longer if you can cook it right there and serve it, and that's why we do that there. But I mean, everything in here is this kind of suite. This is we rent this on a nightly basis. It's bigger. You can put up to 60 people in here, in and out of here. Having flexibility with the suites, that's kind of something that you just intuitively figure out when you travel around. You can't have every suite be the same. Now, we do have the smaller suites but we have 2 of these. We've got 2 big party suites on the ends, and then we've got 18 of these of the similar smaller suites that are leased out to businesses and individuals. So there's a lot that goes into this, and again, the Howard Hughes Corporation was fantastic about not sparing any expense, and when you do something right, you get rewarded, and I think that's part of what we've got here.
Nice. And one more thing before we wrap up. Do you have any advice for a veteran who's transitioning out of the military that wants to get into more of the behind-the-scenes work in like minor league baseball or in sports in general here in Las Vegas?
I think as sports in general, I believe strongly that if you want to get into sports, you got to get into the sport that you're passionate about.
Yes.
I don't. I've got 50 full-time employees. We've got some ex-players, but a lot of the people, baseball's their first love. Our baseball operations guy, he grew up being a bat boy at Cashman. He played baseball at Bishop Gorman High School. Tried to play at UNLV, got cut, but then he came back and worked for us. But he's a baseball guy through and through. We've had, you get a football. I'm helping a couple kids that are UNLV football players whose eligibility was up, and they're working, and they're doing great. But it's different. We play 75 home games. We play 6 nights in a row. We play at night. We play in the heat. You got to be a part of the sport you're passionate about, the sport you love. Everybody, I like sports. Well, you like one sport more than another. I don't care. You have to, and you have to work in this sport especially. You got to understand it. I think that the other part of it is that you got to be a positive impact on the organization. You got to be able to generate revenue. So you got to understand that you're going to. The way we start people here is they start out selling tickets.
Mm-hmm.
They come in at the salary isn't great. There's a commission and a bonus package attached to it, and you make your way. If you can go out and generate ticket sales and generate revenue, and understand how we fit into the community from a business perspective. And again, you got it. We can't do anything we do for anybody unless we sell tickets and make money.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It weeds people out, but you got to be willing to. In today's world, I'm still not a huge proponent of it, but it's worked real well for us. But we buy databases. We do tons of email blasts, and we have phone lists, thousands and thousands of phones that we text to, and then we call directly. And you got to be able to handle rejection.
Yes.
I think if you get about a 5% pass-through rate, so you make 100 calls, you're going to make 5 sales out of those 100 calls, text, emails, whatever it would be. But and again, I think the military mindset, with the training and the discipline that goes into the military, just that ex-military folks have, I think it plays well. I know, I've got a guy, actually he's a former SEAL. He was referred to us by a guy in Oklahoma City. One of his other former SEALs is in Oak City working for the Comets, and his wife got transferred here, so he's moving here. So we don't have any openings now, but because he's a SEAL, because he's referred by somebody in the business, we're going to talk to him. And but that's what I tell people. You got to love it. If you don't love it, and whatever it is, if it's baseball, if it's audio, video, if it's doing a podcast, if it's working in traditional television, if it's working on movies, they will eventually figure out how to build a movie studio here, which will help all you guys out in doing that. But there's got to be passion for it, or you're not gonna feel the benefits of that you can if you do something you love.
If you follow your passions, you never work a day in your life.
That's how I feel. I couldn't.
There's a reason you've been here for 42 years.
Yeah, you succeed. You endure. Yeah, you can't either. There isn't anybody I've worked with or worked for that didn't understand how much this meant to me. And I've certainly had my challenges with some people along the way, but at the end, that's life.
Yes.
You can't be a wimp. You got to suck it up and understand. And understand you always got to answer to somebody.
Yes.
Ultimately, we answer to the Supreme. We answer to God. We answer. You answer to your family, to your wife, or to your husband, or whom. However you don't have the benefit of just deciding what you're going to do all the time. You know, it's just, that's life. You gotta understand that.
Yeah. So Don, thank you so much for coming
No problem.
upstairs.
No
And we appreciate
problem.
you. Awesome.
No problem.
Take care. Stupid. Stupid. All right, welcome back. We're just finishing wrapping up. We had a great episode with Mr. Don Logan. This is Ronnie Long. And we're live on scene. So, check us out next week. Every Friday, there's going to be a new episode.